This video is going to help you create your Cartesian coordinate plane interactive notebook note, which we're going to be using throughout the remainder of the unit. So it's really important that you follow these step by step and that you make sure that you get all of the information down. Okay, so the image that you can see right now is what it should look like at the end of the first step. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to glue this square part into your notebook. Now, make sure that your red sections here do not get glued down. Those are going to be flaps that we're going to fold over. All you want to glue down is the back part of this section here. Okay, so it should be on your red paper or whatever color we photocopied it on, and you're just going to glue that back square on. So now that you've glued hopefully just the back part on, you should find that your flaps here are free, and there should be a slice down the middle if you've cut it out correctly. So you should eventually be able, you can kind of see here, to fold them over. What you're going to do before you do that though is you're going to label the insides of the flaps as you see here. So in the top right hand corner here, above should be positive Y. To the side should be positive X. Take a minute to label those, positive Y, positive X. In the quadrant directly underneath that, to the side we want positive X, and underneath we want negative Y. So again, to the side we want positive X, and to the bottom negative Y. In the quadrant beside that, you want to make sure the bottom is negative Y, and the side is negative X. And then in your last remaining quadrant, you want to make sure the side is negative X and the top is positive Y. So before you move on to the next thing, please make sure that you have all 8 of these flaps properly labeled. Please don't just do positive or negative. Please do not just do X or Y. Make sure it says positive Y, positive X, negative Y, negative X, or whatever combination you need on that page. Now before we move on to labeling the next part, I just want to make sure that you understand what we mean by positive X, positive Y, X, negative Y, and what implications that has for each of the quadrants. So to start with, we have to define quadrant. A quadrant is like a quarter or one section. So because this is our entire Cartesian plane, and it's divided here into 4 equal, what we call quadrants. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different quadrants. Now, on your flaps that you just created, you wrote this as a positive Y and this as a positive X. Okay, so that means that whatever coordinates you plot in here, if you do this plot, remember we always do X before Y, that's along the line of 3 and the line of 2. So that would be positive, let me get rid of that. What did I do, 3 and 2? That would be positive 3, 2. That's how we would write that ordered pair. Now we don't have to put the plus sign in front of it when it's positive, we only do it if it's negative. Now in our next quadrant, you can see that the x-axis here is still positive, so we're still working on positive x, and our y-axis is negative, so we're working on negative y. That's a G. Negative y. So that means if I plotted a point right here, okay, we always plot our x-axis before our y-axis. If I plotted a point there, I'm checking my x-axis and it's coming along this line. So that means that I would start with positive 5 and then it rolls along this line here, which is negative 4. So this ordered pair would be plotted as positive 5, negative 4. If we move on to this quadrant, you can see that our x-axis is negative numbers. So we are into negative x. And our y-axis is negative numbers, so we're into negative y as well. Which means if I plotted a point at about here, I'm going to check my x-axis first, come down, that would be a negative 2. And on my y-axis it's here, and it would be a negative 3. So my ordered pair in this quadrant would be negative 2, negative 3. So the last quadrant that we have to work with here is up in this area here. So you can see here that our x-axis is negative, so we're still going to be negative x, and our y-axis is positive, so we're going to be positive y. So if I plot a point at about here, okay, I'm checking my x-axis first, that's going to be negative 5. My y-axis is going to be positive 4, so my ordered pair is going to be negative 5, positive 4 on that point. So this brings us to what you actually have to label onto the next part of your flap. So just watch this part of the video, because once I've explained it to you here, I'm going to show you an example of the next part of the flap and you'll be able to do it then. But you need to be able to understand why you're doing it. So in the next section, what you're going to do is you're going to look at what combination of positive and negative we have in each quadrant, and you're going to label it appropriately. So for example, if we look at this first quadrant here, we have positive 3, positive 2. So what you're going to do on your flap in a moment is you're going to label it like this: positive, positive. But you're not going to label it on the grid, so please don't label anything yet. Okay? The quadrant underneath it, we have a positive 5, a negative 4. So you're actually going to label this grid space with a positive, negative. Okay? Because our x is positive, our y is negative, and we always do our x before our y. So in this quadrant, we had negative 2, negative 3, which means that we're going to actually label it as a negative, negative quadrant. Looks like a little happy face. And in the final quadrant we have here, we have a negative, positive. So we're actually going to label this quadrant negative, positive. Because again, our x is negative and our x always comes first, our y is positive and it comes second. So when you look at the next picture of what your flaps are supposed to look like, this is how we got to the combinations of positive, 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 negative, 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 and negative, positive. So now we're ready to look at the next picture. Alright, so I know this picture can look a little bit confusing, but really you should understand what you're going to be doing now. I've just added this picture of your original flaps in so that we can use it to talk us through what you need to do first. So, on your flap right here that you had written positive y on, I want you to fold your flap down so that it's closed over this section of the coordinate plane and you get the top of it. That's where you're going to write your positive, positive, because that coordinate plane is a positive, positive coordinate plane. Now in the quadrant below that, you're going to take this flap, the one that says positive x, and you're going to fold it in so that it touches this line, and you're going to label the outside of that positive, negative. In the next quadrant, you're going to take your flap that says negative y, and you're going to fold it up so that it is closed over and touching this line, and you're going to label it with the bored looking negative, negative face. And finally, in your last quadrant here, you're going to take your flap that you wrote negative x on, you're going to fold it over so that it touches this line this way, and you're going to write negative, positive on the outside of it. So to finish up your Cartesian coordinate plane foldable, you have a number of flaps that are still open. You have the positive y flap, you have this positive x flap, you have the negative y flap, and you have the negative x flap. So you're going to take those flaps and you're going to fold them over the ones you just folded. So the positive, 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 negative, 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 positive stay closed, and then you take the flaps that I've circled in blue and you fold them into your center so that in the end you should have a nice square that looks something like this. And then you're going to label them. Now, you might not know what these numbers are, but they're actually Roman numerals. So each of these is a number. This one is number 1, this one is number 2, this one is number 3, and this one is number 4. Okay? If you understand Roman numerals, great. Number them with the Roman numerals. If you don't, please just label them 1, 2, 3, 4. These labels tell us which quadrant is which. So for example, if I said plot a point in quadrant 1, you'd need to know that that was this part of the coordinate plane. Or if I said plot a point in quadrant 3, you would need to know that it is that part of the plane. So if we go back to our blank copy of the coordinate plane now, so you can see what it looks like without all the flaps, that means that this quadrant, which is the positive, positive quadrant, is actually quadrant 1. And this quadrant to the left of it, which is our negative positive quadrant, is actually quadrant 2. And the quadrant below us, which is the negative negative board face quadrant, is quadrant 3. And finally that leaves us with our positive negative quadrant, which is quadrant 4. So hopefully now you have your foldable complete and you understand which of the 4 quadrants there are, which one is 1, which one is 2, which is 3, and which is 4, and how we decide whether or not it's a positive negative quadrant or a negative positive quadrant, and so on.